and welcome back to the Whalenerds podcast. This is episode 64. My name is Caitlin, and I'm here with Adam and Eric. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, yo?
Hey, friends. Thanks for
Hello.
getting together right before the holiday. One more episode before the new year. Sorry Slater can't be with us tonight, but, we got family schedules and things to try and accommodate. So we're going to get on here and do a quick podcast, and then we'll see you in 2021, I believe, will be our next episode that'll be out. So, woo!
I'm excited for the new year. I need a change in my life. I need some good vibes and some positivity.
Bad things just don't go away because the calendar hits another year.
I know.
Yeah, it does. It's like Y2K. The one goes in on the end, and it changes everything in the computer.
Doctors don't go, that virus will go away in a month or so.
Yeah, it'll disappear.
Yeah, it's going to be gone.
It's just going to disappear.
Thank God for 2021.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci got his vaccine today. It's going to change everything.
It doesn't just reset, It's not like, you're playing Super Nintendo, like, oh, I just messed up on that part, reset. Nope.
Well, I am hopeful that the new year is going to bring some changes. So that's where I'm at. If you live in Georgia, please go vote.
Yeah. I think it's going to bring some good whale vibes as well. I'm feeling it. 2021 is going to be a banger of a year.
I don't think so. Whales only like even numbers.
What do you mean?
Whales only like even.
Isn't it supposed to be a La Nina?
What is long-term climate patterns anymore? They're all screwed up.
True. But I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a La Nina this year.
Yeah, well, remains to be seen, okay?
Yeah, but I'm hopeful. Get that cold water, some nutrient-rich water, get some food for the whales, and get a bunch of boys.
Get a bunch of boys.
And girls. I just call them all boys because they're like my boys.
Like B-O-I.
Yeah, B-O-I-S, yeah.
So, on our agenda today, do you guys want to do whale news first or something else first? I mean, I put it in this order, but it doesn't have to go in that order.
You want to talk about sightings, or?
We'll start with our traditional sightings.
Okay, Eric, it's the only one that really has sightings.
Oh yeah, Adam can start with the boatyard if he likes. I mean,
I saw that. Yeah, so the other day,
Express.
Talk about that sanding.
Or those barnacles.
I saw a seagull. That was pretty cool. Actually,
what kind of gull?
It's a western gull. Thank you very much for correcting me. Seagull's not a thing. I've seen a couple of homeless people walking around. Seen the bottom side of the boat. I've seen a bunch of sanding, a bunch of 220 grit sandpaper, as well as some 80 grit sandpaper. Some 264 primer paint, as well as some Trilux paint.
And what kind of bottom paint?
Yeah,
and some new engines.
What kind of bottom paint were you using?
We're using Trilux 33.
Cool. New zincs yet, or wait until you're done? The paint's all dry.
Yeah, we got to do the zincs later. We got to wait for that to be all done. We're just sanding everything down at the moment, and our jet parts.
Super exciting.
We just got in the heads and controls and wires, so we can start doing a wire run.
Switches.
Yeah.
Electric switches.
Well, we're gonna have a whole lot of crap.
Dude, you guys are like into the next century.
I know. It's pretty cool. It's actually really cool that we're doing this because it's for the air quality, our missions. So our engines were just so old that they had to be updated, and these new engines will be good in the boat until 2035. And so they're a lot more efficient.
What tier are they?
Tier 3.
Tier 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, which is good. Nobody wants to pollute. We're gonna be putting out a lot less CO2. It's going to be a lot more efficient. We're going to be a little bit faster. And after this is all done, we'll get our COI up a little bit as well. So we'll be up to 149 for passengers.
Are they lighter?
They're lighter. But the problem was our boat has really big engine rooms because it's such a big boat.
That's not a problem.
Well, it is with the Coast Guard now.
I'd like to be able to stand up inside the engine room. That's a great
I know, but it's
feature.
a problem with the Coast Guard now because they don't want big engine rooms because if water gets in there, it can sink the boat a lot easier.
Yeah, it's a big void that can be filled.
So we had our COI go down originally, even though our engine's a lot lighter. Hey,
Wouldn't
so we
be
were
a
down to
podcast if we didn't
106.
have a dog.
You're totally right. But we went down to 106, and so we had to get these flotation boxes put in the back of the boat off the stern to go back up to 149. So it's just this huge freaking mess. But the first
CFRs.
I know, but we've gone almost through our first month now, and we've gotten a lot done. So hopefully, in early February, we'll be back running again. If not, middle of February. Hey,
you guys are aware 2/3 of our listeners are like, WTF right now?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna ask some clarifying questions because not everyone's boat people and not everyone's commercial passenger carrying vessel boat people. So, you guys upgraded to tier 3. Did you do that on your own dime, or did you have Moyer grant money? If you don't mind me asking, I don't know if you can tell people that.
We did have some grant money, but we paid a lot for those as well.
So
we kind of get both ways.
The emission standards in California, I don't know if it's in every state, but the Coast Guard does have a say. Well, I guess they have more of a say in the function and the weight and all that. But in California, where I'm more experienced with it, there's an emissions program for like these goals they've set for commercial passenger carrying vessels to reduce emissions, and usually that also helps with your fuel consumption and efficiency overall when you upgrade engines. And there is a grant money pool. The one I'm familiar with is the Moyer grant, and it's, I think, from the Department of Air and Environmental Quality or something. I don't know what the department name is exactly.
Yeah, it's ACBD or something like that.
Yeah. And so they help offset the cost because new engines are expensive. Like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars if your boat has multiple engines. Like, what does the Condor have? 3? 4. So it's a big ticket item. And they're set in tiers, so you don't necessarily have to jump from like tier 1 to tier 3, but if you can make it pencil out, in an amount of time that's reasonable, then, jumping to the highest tier so that you have your engines for as long as possible is always a good move. Because the other thing with those big engines for boats is when they like get to the end of their like quote unquote life, you don't just buy a new one, you rebuild it because that's cheaper. So when Adam's saying that you're putting an engine in till you're good until 2035, it's because they plan to rebuild those engines multiple times. They don't plan to buy brand new engines.
Exactly.
So
I think the engines we had, the Detroit diesels we had in there.
Oh my God, you had Detroit's in there?
Yeah.
Are you the last boat ever to run Detroit?
Probably.
You can't even get parts for them anymore.
I know. It's actually really hard. One of our buddies that works on one of the local NOAA boats was like asking us to sell him some parts from the old engines. But those things, I think they were at least rebuilt twice. So.
Yeah. I mean, like in Monterey, the John Deeres on some of the boats that I'd been on had been rebuilt 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So at least. So
it's pretty crazy. It's a really long and tasking process, but I'm happy to be a part of it. I think there's a lot of good knowledge I've been learning and a lot of good back-breaking work.
This is your Adam. This I can tell. This is your first year at the boatyard ever,
your
isn't
first
it?
yard.
This is my first yard.
Yeah, enjoy it. Wait until next year. You're gonna do anything to avoid it.
Yeah, you're gonna be like sanding. I don't know how to use that.
Yeah.
I think now is a good time to bring up. Since we have so many people who are always like, "Oh, I can't wait to become a naturalist or get into that field or work on a boat." Yeah, and the off season comes.
It's a lot of work, man.
Hope you're good with a paintbrush in the off season.
Exactly. I mean, I'm over it. I have so many horror stories, like literally just flipping out at boatyards. So it's like,
yeah, it's a stressful place, but I'm looking forward to going back to whale watching because I think I'm gonna appreciate it even more than I already have. Like, like if Dave's like, "Hey, scrub the boat," I'm like, "Oh, no problem. I'll scrub the entire boat. I'll scrub your house. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'll scrub it. Want me to scrub your bike and your car? Like, it's fine."
Yeah, I think so. My piece of advice though to new boat crew is if you're serious about being in the industry for a long time or like making a career on boats, whether it's deckhanding, naturalizing, becoming a captain someday, I think doing at least a couple boat yards is good. One, because you learn more about your boat, which I think is always important for safety and like just general boat awareness. And two, if you really want to become a captain, you are in charge in the yard someday. And so like you need to see all the grunt work that happens.
And that's
you
how
we see how much of a mess it can be.
And that's how we're losing so many captains in the field. Look at, there's so many deckhands with licenses, and they realize it's not just, oh, I drive the boat, look at me. And the next thing you know, they're like, hey, you need to do this. And they're like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that. And so a lot of people see being a captain as such a glamorous thing, and then that hits them, and then they're like, they don't realize that they have to do boat work and stuff like that and be familiar with all that stuff and do the maintenance. And then they're like, okay, I think I'll just, have that license on the back burner and just continue either being a naturalist or deckhand.
Yeah, well, and the license has nothing to do with the engine room, like.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything about your knowledge of your boat or like, how experienced you are with things or how you can control things in the yard and get things done. It's pretty impressive watching Dave work.
Yeah, and that's why sea time is so important. It's ridiculous that how people are getting their license after a year, and it's like, you're gonna learn so many things out there over the years that you're not learning in that book or by the Coast Guard, or in that class. I mean, it's sea time is so important.
Yeah, and I would encourage
they're getting licenses.
Yeah, I would encourage sea time on a variety of vessels as well that are in the size class you're interested in. Because that also implies that you're going to end up working with different crews and different captains and be familiar with, like not every boat's a cookie cutter of the next one. Like each boat has its own little quirks and the way it rides and things to be aware of. And
our boat is so unique. It's honestly one of a kind in California. Like, we have the jet parts. Our boat's totally jet propulsed. It's not propellers. It's a little bit bigger. It's like a 71-foot boat, so we have to use the federal Coast Guard instead of the local Coast Guard.
Are you guys a K boat or a T boat? Do you know?
No.
So like the Hurricane 2 is a K boat. So the CFR requirements and like passenger safety requirements and stuff are different.
Yeah, I'm not sure what ours is, but it's a whole lot of work. That's all I'm gonna say. So I'm excited to get back on the ocean every day. That being said, though, there has been a ton of life in the channel that we've sadly been missing. I just counted it all together, and since September, there's been 8 confirmed killer whale sightings in the channel, and my count for this year is a big old fat 0. So that's a little disappointing, but that's all right. At least they're there.
You've seen other whales too. I mean,
yeah. It's not
everyone has to get over the killer whale thing. I mean, there's other whales too. What about the thing with baleen?
A whole bunch of killer whales this month.
Every day,
yeah, but it's like that's not the only thing there. I mean, it's like, oh man, our humpbacks are so awesome, our dolphins are so awesome, and everyone's just like,
totally.
If I had $1 for every time I'm on the boat, it's like the first question every other trip is pretty much, when's the last time you saw killer whales?
Yeah,
it's like,
that's how it goes.
The freaking humpback whales, or the blue whales, or the fin whales, or the dolphins.
I think I honestly like humpbacks more than killer whales, but I think this is my first year in the 3 years that I've been whale watching that I haven't seen killer whales. So,
and this is why vaquitas are in trouble. This is why so many animals are in trouble, and people are like, "Oh, what's a vaquita?" I was like, "Oh my god."
I mean, it's definitely good to get the name out there for the vaquita and different species, but I think it's also important that people love killer whales. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
They should love the animal where I can probably count them on one hand right now.
The vaquita is that nobody ever sees them. You can't just hop on a whale watch boat and go see them. You can't just pull up a picture of them.
And because of that, we should probably worry about them,
Well,
yeah. And I think, unfortunately, it's a marketing issue, right? Like, that's an ugly way to say it, but like, it's an awareness issue because, I think if people would have learned about them when there was more of them, they are so cute that people would have like latched onto them. But it's like, it's so too little too late at this point, which is so sad.
Yeah. I was like, I talk about conversation on the boat, and it's like always my ending thing, and it's like, vaquita? Huh?
But I mean, I think it's still important, right? Like, it's still important to bring them up, like, for sure.
It's not still important. It is important, you know?
Yeah.
We waited till the last minute, and it's like,
yeah, a lot of people said when the Baiji was declared extinct that, you know, we would learn from that and really try to help the next cetacean species, but
here's our moment.
We don't really learn, so I don't know. I guess next is what
I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, you know, 70 plus SRKWs and maybe, you know, maybe 10 Vaquita at the most, and it's like
less than that, yeah.
I mean, do the math, people.
Yeah.
I mean, but you bring up a good point though, and you know the fact that everybody loves killer whales. If you can't save the southern residents, what the hell can we save?
Well, that's also a fair point.
And conservation's getting really scary. I mean, people's viewpoints of animals. There's people who say, I don't get people's thought process nowadays. Do you ever talk to people like, I love wildlife? I'm like, what do you like? I'm like, I like dogs. I was like, oh my God.
Like that. I love animals is a better way to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not going to help, you know, save things. I mean, yeah, I like dogs too, but the big picture is you got to start with wild animals. And then there's people, I'm not going to name any names. I mean, I have some close friends. I noticed their trends, you know, they only like those highlighted animals. I mean, they don't like the snakes. They don't like the lizards. You know, it's only whales and dolphins. But we're not
charismatic megafauna.
Yeah, we're not going to save, you know, the planet by caring about everything. I mean, you guys know me well. You see what animals I adore. It's everything, you know.
Yeah,
totally.
When I'm gone, it's not because I don't want a podcast. It's because I'm looking for animals. You know, birds, reptiles, lizards, salamanders. You know,
owls.
Yeah,
I think it is important though when you do have those flagship species that, you know, protecting them can protect the whole environment or lower trophic levels or whatever it is. You know, like protecting the southern resident killer whales is gonna protect the salmon species. It's gonna protect the harbor porpoise. It's gonna protect the stellar sea lion. It's gonna protect everything in that region. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
If you capitalize on the opportunity correctly, you know.
Like it's true, and you could just save the southern residents and deplete everything else, you know. But you really have to look at it as a whole. And like I was talking to Jeff with Maya's Legacy, and he was saying that it's not even about saving the southern residents. It's about saving the whole ecosystem. Like there's so many amazing creatures that can benefit from the southern residents being the highlight of that, you know, region. But it really is about saving even something as small as like the seagrass there, you know. Like they implemented a lot of mooring buoys there instead of people dropping their anchor in the seagrass just to protect that. It's like little things like that build the environment and can just kind of snowball and just help save the
problem over there now is they're not working on that first. You know, they're not working on the environment. That's, you know, that's what's really hurting these animals. They're still, to this day, and it's gotten worse. A lot of you people up in the Pacific Northwest know what just happened. You know, it's like they're blaming whale watchers. They're blaming boats. And, you know, there's going to be a big issue now where there might be, I don't know if you heard about this, Adam. You worked up there. You might have got wind of this, but they're proposing doing time frames, you know, where people can go look at the SRKWs and stuff like that. And
we kind of talked about that last episode, right? It's like specific days during a specific time of year.
And you're literally going to cause the people who are actually trying to save these animals and the biggest influence on, you know, on the general public. You know, we're the ones who spread the messages and stuff like that. So as educators, as naturalists, you know, as well as folks on the whale watching boats, you know, we're actually taking the people out to see these animals, you know, and now you're going to keep us away from doing that.
It's
you should start with the problem, which is, lack of food, all the other environmental issues out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, this year has caused me to reflect a lot on, like, our science communication abilities in the US especially, but around the world. I mean, look at how communicating science about COVID has gone, and that's a much more pertinent human problem than any conservation issue that people can latch onto right now. As far as what's in people's frame of mind, I think climate change and other conservation issues are just as big of an emergency as the pandemic, because you think the pandemic went poorly. Wait till you see what happens when sea levels rise and things get hotter and fresh water becomes more scarce. It's going to be just as terrifying, if not more.
Totally agree with that.
And so, like, just looking at how poorly science was communicated and understood by the general public this year, it's like, oh my God, we have got a lot of work to do in all different facets of science. Because if you can't get the general public engaged, like, on a massive scale, I don't really see how you're going to get any change to happen, because politicians are driven by their constituents, and if a general person walking down the street can't understand it, then your elected official probably can't either.
Totally. And
they're not experts in science, but they're making the decisions about it.
That's why what we do, you know, whether it be taking people out in the boats in person or trying to display that message over social media. And granted, I should probably, looking back on my post, like I should probably be a little bit better on that, but that's what we're devoting our life to. And I think it says a lot about that, because, you know, we're not chasing money. We're not chasing, you know, the American dream or success or like any of that. Like, we're just trying to help the planet, and we've devoted our lives to that. And I think that's a beautiful thing that a lot of people can latch onto. And, you know, whether, like I said, it be on the boat or over social media, like, we do have a good influence on people that care. And it's just now about extending that to people that either don't care or don't know. That's the hardest part. So
Yep. And I think then that has to echo up the chain too, to holding those responsible to the massive destruction of our planet responsible. You know, we got to get back on the Paris Agreement. We got to hold our industries responsible for their waste and their destruction and their, you know, no more breaks.
Hopefully under the new administration, we can start to get back to doing those things and being a progressive country that really thinks about the environment and renewable energies and sustainability. You know, that's always the hope. But, you know, that's like the whole reason why we're upgrading our boat. Like, you know, we could have sat on it for another couple years. But like, no, it was time. You know, you got to upgrade to the next standard, and you got to, you know, support things like that. Like, no matter what it is, if it's monetarily or socially or whatever, you got to support the growing need and just everything around sustainability, I think. So
yeah, for sure.
So anyways, it's a tough topic, but anyways.
I think it was a valid point to make, Eric. I'm glad you brought it up. Do you want to talk about your sightings now?
My sightings?
Yeah. That's
you know what? My Monterey sightings are just, as everyone knows, just the last 2-3 weeks, about 4 killer whale sightings, and pretty much every sighting they were eating sea lions, going after sea lions, and then
the season.
and also a few humpbacks still out here. It seems to be the same few that are hanging out. Still mom and calves. There's about maybe 2 pairs still in the bay that have been doing really awesome for us, getting really friendly and curious around boats. Dolphin, gray whales are slowly trickling in the area. I had 2 today, so yeah, Monterey still good as usual. Good variety of animals out here. You know, everything's still showing. The next thing we're expecting is once again, just our good consistent flow of gray whales coming through, and the weather's been surprisingly good out here. You know, seas have been okay. Yeah, but I think. Anything else? Anything I missed? I don't know. You guys probably watch my social media, probably see it all.
No, I think that's pretty much all of it. I had some fun sightings.
You saw a Christmas tree being lit, I know.
Yeah. So one of the projects I've been doing at home with my family is sorting through the shoe boxes and shoe boxes and shoe boxes full of photos that we have accumulated over my parents' life and my sister and I's life. And we broke into some old photos from the 80s of Depot Bay, and there's gray whale pictures in there.
No way.
Cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, my parents, I mean, they went whale watching a lot on the Central Oregon coast, from land and on a boat. before I even came on scene. And so even with my mom's little point and shoot camera, she got a few gray whale photos. So that was pretty fun to go through those.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
there's photos from the San Juan somewhere. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm pretty sure I tried to take point and shoot photos of killer whales. So if I find those, I'll post them on our Patreon. I posted the gray whale photos on our Patreon just for fun to be like, haha, so cool. I saw whales.
So did your parents like get you into whales? Like if they were whale watchers before, or you just like do it yourself as a little girl?
Well, yeah. So like they like all wildlife and animals and stuff, and they love the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
And so like as a kid, they just kind of like let Melissa, my sister, and I, follow whatever interested us. And for me, it was animals, but it wasn't whales and specifically until I got to college.
Was it chickens?
We raised chickens, we raised rabbits, I did 4-H and showed goats, I rode horses, I worked at a horse farm. Yeah, I mean,
what farm?
A horse farm.
Oh,
like a boarding facility where people would bring. Yeah. I taught swim lessons. I worked as an outdoor school counselor. Like just whatever I could get my hands on. But we didn't live on the coast, it was like an hour away. So
gotcha.
We'd go to the beach maybe once or twice a year, sometimes more than that. But yeah, I mean, it just like it happened when I got to Oregon State, because Oregon State actually has a big marine mammal program for graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
So I lucked out with Jim Sumich on a one weekend class, and it's his fault from there on out.
The master of gray whales.
Yeah,
the pretty cool
the godfather of gray whales.
Yeah, Jim's like my hero.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So. Yeah, he's a fun guy.
So yeah, so that's kind of how it fell into it. But yeah, I mean, my mom is also really good at like picking off wildlife from the car. Like my dad always says, like, good thing she doesn't hunt, because there would be no more animals. Like, like she'd be like bald eagle, deer, elk, fox, whatever it is, and we're going down the road 55 miles an hour, and she's like, oh, look over there, and it's like already gone.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
it's a cool story. I like that story. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see. You guys want to hit on those questions?
Yeah, I think especially the second and third one kind of tie into what we've been talking about.
Yeah, go for it.
So the first one I think we should talk about is good places to take kids whale watching. I think the winter time is one of the, in my opinion, easier times to answer that question. And it kind of depends on the age of the kids, but I think like from however young you are comfortable taking them on the boat and up, gray whale season is a really good time to go. And I would say, I don't know. I mean, Monterey's okay. The weather can be pretty unpredictable, and the trips are still 2.5 to 3 hours. I mean, you're definitely going to see whales, but it is a long trip for younger kids. But down in Southern California, really at the height of gray whale season, like a 2-hour trip, I think is kind of perfect.
Yeah. And another thing about gray whales is, especially if you're out here in California, you don't even necessarily have to be on a boat.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on the age of the kids and their attention span and how good they are at using binoculars and stuff. I mean, even watching them from shore along the California coast is a good option.
Yeah.
And it's much less expensive, usually.
Yeah, and depending on where you are, whoever asked the question, if they need details, I mean, I know pretty much the entire California coast pretty well. I can name a few little points that during peak season are pretty much going to be a sure thing.
Yeah, like what would you say? Like February is a really good time.
Time wise, yeah. February, March is still pretty amazing,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then on the East Coast, it's not Wales, but I would say if they're happy with dolphin watching, pretty much anywhere, Southern Virginia and South, like we saw bottlenose dolphins every day, and a lot of places do dolphin tours, which I think is a pretty approachable first trip for kids of any age. And then on the East Coast, if they can handle a 4 or 5 hour trip, then whale watching in New England has been really good too. So it kind of depends on how long they can how long can you hold their attention and keep them entertained?
Definitely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like the 2.5 hour gray whale tours are perfect, especially when they're northbound. They're right along the coast, so it's you have it even on a 2 hour or 2.5 hour trip. You got a higher chance to see them if they're going north. They usually hug the coast, which gives you a little bit
in
more
Southern
time to search for
California.
them. In SoCal, yeah. Sorry, did I not in Virginia. There's no
No,
whales
but
in
I mean,
Virginia.
even in Monterey, the northbound is tough.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely better south.
Well, they just scoot
northbound.
across the canyon there, don't they? I guess that's pretty far.
And they get very sneaky.
Yeah.
So
They kind of gotta be though.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know, when do you guys start whale watching again on the Condor?
Hopefully in mid-February, so that's kind of a perfect time, and we always get a whole heap of gray whales going north, just right in front of the harbor. It's pretty cool. There's this one little spot called Ledbetter Beach, which is just a quick turn right outside the harbor. And there's always a bunch of kelp there. And kind of later in the season, March or so, is when we get the babies coming in with moms. They seem to always, like, whenever we get a baby and a mom, they always stop in that little kelp forest there and just roll around. Like every time I've seen them. So that's they really like that little spot there for whatever reason. But
I would also say when travel gets a little easier, Hawaii is a good place anytime January, February, or March. The trips are only 2 hours and there's lots of whales. And then Mexico, there's a couple different options there. You could go to Baja, depending on how your kids can handle small boats and that kind of stuff. But also in Cabo and a couple other places, you can see humpbacks. So, and my understanding is it's probably pretty easy to find them during peak season as well, January, February, March. Yeah. But what you like to go even later to Baja, right, Eric? Like March, April?
If we're doing San Ignacio, we try to go as late as possible. Our theory is, and it's always worked out for us, is that the calves, especially over there in lagoons, are more used to the presence of the pongas, and they tend to be a little bit more, showy and willing to come towards you. And
yeah.
So and that has always worked out for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's other places in the world to go whale watching too. Like there's several different locations around Australia. You really have to look at what the seasons are. I don't know too much about what length of tours are offered there, but humpback whales are pretty easy to watch kind of throughout the year, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
And humpbacks, I think, are a good species to watch for kids because they come up a lot. They show their tail. Sometimes they do fun things. So
definitely.
Yeah,
better than like sperm whales or something.
There's a lot of places that are pretty much like hidden gems. Like I was surprised with Quebec in Canada. Oh my god, that was like some of the best whale watching I've ever had. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tadoussac and stuff. That's actually a good point.
That was amazing. Literally, like one trip I had belugas, fins, humpbacks, minkies. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia is good during the summer months as well if you're in Canada too. And then Vancouver, British Columbia, and up in the San Juans, and it's not all just killer whales, right? There's minkies, there's porpoises, there's
definitely not
humpbacks. There's occasionally gray whales depending on where you go out of. And so.
Definitely, my favorite part about the San Juans is that you really can see anything. Like, I mean, obviously in Monterey you can see the same. You can say the same thing, but it's not just the whales there. It's the eagles, it's the harbor seals, and it's the stellar sea lions. It's the fish. It's everything. It's just really diverse up there. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and for the Oregon coast, whale watching can be kind of tough for kids. Depot Bay is a better spot to see them even from land because they're very close to shore there. But what I liked about when I worked at Marine Discovery Tours in Newport is because whale sightings can sometimes be slim, they have like a full interactive program. You see the sea lions, you do a plankton tow, you drop a crab pot on your way out and pick it up on the way back. You look at all these different aspects of the ecosystem. You look for harbor seals up the river, depending on how the day went, that kind of stuff. So you're still going to see things. And it's a good thing for the kids because they let them help.
That's another good point. this kind of pandemic settles down, if you are part of your kids, PTA or parent teacher association or something, like reach out to a local whale watch company, see if you can get them out there to do some plankton tows or anything like that. We do that in the Condor. I know Delaney's company does that down south. I'm sure a lot of companies do that. Just that's our whole point, is to get kids out in the ocean and really love it. And it was pretty cool. I think it was 2019. We had a school group out doing plankton tows, but we had these two humpbacks come and approach the boat, and like you have not like you think taking kids to an amusement park gets them happy. Like wait until you have like a 40-ton humpback come up and like spy hop next to them. Like they were losing their minds, which was like the most amazing feeling ever. But yeah, I mean, reach out to your local whale watch company, see if you can do a school day, once this kind of pandemic, kind of settles down. You can get the kids out there in the ocean.
What's good is, I don't know, I've kind of noticed this, and someone told me it was true. When I was a kid, it seemed like, and I'm older, a lot older than you guys. I mean, we used to have a lot of field trips, and I know, I talked to some kids who are like, "What's a field trip?" Like, it's almost sad. Like they don't go anymore. But luckily, I know when I was over at Dana Wharf, when I was the manager there, they had a program where they knew that was happening. So they would actually take in donations and stuff to get these trips for these kids, just so we can get kids out there, especially these kids who literally live like in a beach city and never been on a boat or never even seen a whale and even realize one of the largest living creatures on the planet is just right there, like down the street from me. So if you're a teacher or or a parent who wants that to happen for your kid, talk to local whale watch companies or just ask your school to straight out go, and try to pursue one of these, and maybe one of the landings out around here or around you, or we'll be willing to, help you out or get the kids out in the boat.
Yeah, and in Monterey in particular too, if you happen to be somewhere, Southern Bay area or out in Salinas Valley or something like that, O'Neill Sea Odyssey is one of those programs that often is grant funded, so they're able to provide those to underserved schools and underserved communities that normally wouldn't have ocean access. That's one of their parts of their mission, and so that's a good resource. But also, like, occasionally California State Parks is pioneering programs. Like they have the ports program, so if you want to do it virtually, but they also have some in-person programs like the Crystal Cove Alliance thing. There was one going in Monterey as well, but it was just in its infancy, and then COVID happened, so I don't know what's going to happen with it now. But there's other things like that too, state parks and Fish and Wildlife and stuff like that. Sometimes they have funding laying around where they have a program available like that too. So that's also worth looking into.
And these are the things. These are those are the type of moments that you're possibly gonna get one of these kids who might possibly become like the next John Calamakitis or something like that. That's what happened to me. Even though I lived like right there along the water, someone teaching me and telling me that this creature exists here right off your coast. I'm like, what? And that led me to get more into it. So.
Oh, and who else sometimes has funding for that kind of stuff is ACS.
Yeah.
So like the Monterey chapter, we usually would do our gray whale fundraiser in like January, and we would set aside like 40 or 50 seats for school kids for free.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So those are also places to look for opportunities too. So yeah. So that's our suggestions on taking kids whale watching. But if you have more like specific, like if you tell us where you are,
we can find a spot for you.
Yeah, if we're familiar with the area, we can give you some more specific direction.
And even if classes get going, I know sometimes every now and then, like it's just so hard to get kids out of school right now or get the funding to go places. I know every now and then, like the same thing that happened at Dana Wharf was Captain Todd. He used to actually go to the schools and do a presentation. He'd take a gray whale skull over there. You can get please get like a qualified person. Ask them to do a talk. I mean. I just can't believe what I see in the field right now. People who've been in the field for like a year going around acting like an expert teaching people. I was like, no,
I mean, if you really apply yourself, I think you could probably learn enough to teach school kids in that amount of time. But, it's like how much dedication and
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, qualifications and checking things on a box is kind of elitist, I guess. But you know, if you feel comfortable to answer a little kid's question about how do they go poop, or you know, whatever.
Same way you and I do. Just not in the toilet.
Think of what think of like a 6-year-old and how many questions they come up with. If you think you could probably answer a wide variety of them, then maybe you'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need to know the difference between the two species of, or two things of bird-beaked whales, or
Yeah.
They don't need
but
to know
you
that,
know,
but
if you can weave it into an overarching theme and tell a story and get them excited, then
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but that takes time. Like that definitely, like
It
an
does.
interpreter type skill takes time for sure.
It's a tough skill to have as well.
Yeah.
That was a good question. I'm glad somebody brought that up.
And that usually comes up sometime in the winter. We kind of cover that usually. So I'm glad someone asked that. And then the other question that's kind of related to where we've been chatting about things is whale migration routes changing due to climate change. Like, do we think that's happening?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah. I'd say timing as well. Not necessarily the actual physical route for some species, but the time of year that they go.
Definitely.
So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, every area is affected differently. So, like for example, your area, Caitlin, a few years ago, they got really concerned because the humpbacks were really thin over in Maui, and you would think that not being a feeding ground, wouldn't affect it, but they think the blob, just an extra amount of heat, caused maybe a greater dispersal of whales. Maybe they were there; they're just going to other places.
Yep.
Yeah, I just read that paper.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they also think not as many whales were down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then here in Monterey, different population of humpback, but then again, we're cold, which means we're biologically active, a lot of food. So if it gets warm here, obviously there's gonna be less food. So that can definitely mess with us. Yeah.
Yeah, like during the warm water.
Adam gets hit by extra hard by El Nino, his area. Yeah.
Hoping for La Nina.
Yeah, well, and during the warm water event, like from 2013 to 2016 in Monterey, they also thought that most of the whales were then concentrated in this thinner band near shore. Yeah. So it looked like the sightings were incredible, but it was really that what's normally spread out over 50 plus miles was in a 5-mile span.
Yeah.
But like gray whales, there's theories that they might be triggered by how much ice is in their area, and in addition to the daylight and the productivity cycles. And so as there's less and less ice and the ice takes longer to form, they're getting later and later in their migration.
Another thing is the ice, the underlayer, right under the ice, there's actually a great film of plankton that grows under there, an algae that's a really important part of the food chain. So what happened is, I know sometimes a little bit lack of ice is good because it kind of expands
opens up. Yeah.
But when you lose a little too much, you lose a big chunk of the food chain. So that's another major issue. You lose ice, you lose food. So yes, all these issues with environments will cause changes to all populations out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the East Coast, I think it was 3 years ago, they had a UME, so an unusual mortality event with right whales, and part of what was happening is the food shifted a little bit, and the whales were in areas where there was higher trap fishery gear, and then it's also harder to have the shipping lane be a moving target, and so the whales were in places where they aren't normally, and so all that critical habitat that has a lot of restrictions didn't do them a whole lot of good because they weren't in that protected zone. So that's another thing, it might not necessarily be like when they're transiting north south, but like during their summer feeding period, they're out of their usual zone, and so all the physically tied regulations that you put in like don't work anymore, and so that's a struggle. So
It's
yeah,
interesting.
things are shifting.
I don't think I have too much to input on this, just because it's vastly complex. Trying to link climate change to whale migration changes. I mean, you can see it, but it's hard to really say exactly what it could be coming from. Like, for example, the past however many 10 years, our summers in Santa Barbara have been dominated by humpback whales, and if it's not dominated by humpback whales, it's a 50-50 between humpbacks and blues. Last year was pretty much 100% dominated by humpbacks. We saw one blue whale the entire year, and this year it was kind of flipped. We had humpbacks in the early spring and then in the fall, but the entire summer there was like no humpbacks. Who's to say if that's from climate change or if it's from just fish dispersal and fish choosing different areas or whatever. But it really is interesting once you really start paying attention to where whales feed and when they leave and show up. Like we still have blue whales in the channel now. Like we got a report of 15 of them yesterday by Santa Rosa. Like it's pretty incredible to be this late in December and still seeing a bunch of blue whales. But
well, and it's kind of tricky from the whale watch perspective too, because like 20 miles on the boat is a big investment in fuel and time, but 20 miles to a whale is nothing. So like,
yeah, totally.
All they have to do is shift just out of your trip range, and you're like, where are they?
That's a very very good point.
And they're like, what are you talking about? We're here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think changes are happening, and climate change could be a leading contributing factor. But I think a close second is fish stocks, and that is influenced by climate change, but that's also influenced by fishing.
Definitely.
So yeah, and it has top down and bottom up influences. So taking predators at the top and taking forage fish at the bottom is going to shift things around a lot, and it will affect whale sightings. So it's a pretty complex issue, as Adam said.
Definitely, dude.
Eric, you had a question from someone about camera settings, is that right?
Yeah. One of my buddies was asking me here as far as camera settings. I know Slater's not here. I'm basically using the same settings he uses, but Adam, you're the big photographer. I just happen to have a nice camera and go out there, so I'll
You
let
always
Adam
say that,
take
but
over.
you're just as good of a photographer as anyone else in this podcast.
You know, as I always tell
the shots
people,
you've been getting recently, I've been like, holy freaking crap.
I honestly, I mean, I have the camera, but my passengers are my priority, and
Totally.
I'm out in the water every day, so awesome things are happening around me. It's not like I'm a serious photographer, like my Instagram, it's private, so
yeah, exactly.
I'm not a photographer. I just happen to be around cool things, and I take it for me. That's why if you're on my Instagram, yeah, consider yourself lucky because I am private. I usually.
Ooh, consider yourselves lucky.
Yeah, they are, dude. You've been crushing it this year. You've gotten a couple of
you got that new lens that was like, who did
Halo? Yeah, but like, dude, like you're like Halo's ambassador from like this summer. Like that little whale, you made him look so good. He was just so
Don't
beautiful.
Forget, I'm also on the water 6 days a week. Even now during the off season, it's like days a week. If I'm not looking
at
shoot
on auto.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Camera
I'm just kidding.
Slater was kind of the king of this, and it really is pretty much all you need. I mean, obviously there's different things that change, but everybody I know up and down the coast that's a close friend to me shoots shutter priority at 1/3200 of a second.
Yep.
If you do that, Nat Geo will hire you, and you will be a professional wildlife photographer.
I mean, Nat Geo hired me, but not for photos.
That's true. But yeah, that's pretty much all I do. I keep my ISO as low as it can be, usually at about 200 ISO. And I kind of just
the reason why I'm laughing because here in Monterey,
it's too dark and cloudy all the time for that.
Yeah,
it's very rare.
So, and yeah, like Eric's saying, your ISO is essentially just the camera putting in fake light. So if it's really dark out, you got to bump your ISO up, which also
it's not
makes
putting in fake light. It's opening its
That's what it
aperture
is.
to let in more light.
No, that's the aperture.
That's aperture.
That's aperture.
Oh
I'm talking
my
about
God.
ISO. So but yeah, but ISO is like
Not putting in fake light.
it's essentially putting in fake light. It's bright.
Sensitivity to light. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's brightening your image, which makes it a little bit more grainy the higher ISO you can get. But you know, if you're shooting on a nice, bright and sunny day, you know, try to keep your ISO pretty low. 1/3200 of a second for shutter speed. I just let my aperture fluctuate to whatever the camera chooses, but shutter priority is really important. And if you're doing video, you want your shutter speed to be pretty much double whatever your frame rate is. So say you're shooting whatever 1080p at 60 frames per second, try to get your shutter speed at 1/20 or 1/120 or 1/125. That'll get you like the most natural look for video is what I've learned. It makes like the water splash naturally, it makes the animal splash naturally, whatever. But essentially just it's pretty simple. That's why
And if you just straight out go buy the most expensive camera lens, you'll become a better photographer, right?
Yeah, exactly. You
totally.
$1,000 on the Canon 1DX Mark III and a 100-500 lens, and you'll be set.
Okay. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, there are people who think that way, Adam. So let people know, like, what would be the basics you recommend for people who want to get into photography, like the bare minimum?
Yeah. I mean, any camera is gonna get you started. Like my first camera was like a $400 camera, and like it was, you know, not even my camera now is a really cheap setup compared to what a lot of people use. Like a lot of people really, I think the 5D Mark IV and the 100-400 setup is a staple. But that in itself, you know, use that. Eric Slater uses that. That's a $4,000 setup. You know,
most of
us. Not everybody can afford that. Essentially, all you would really need is a camera with a decent megapixel. Like mine has 20. A lot of people, like I said, the 5D has 30. But you know, 16 to 20 megapixels and a lens that can get you from 75 millimeters to maybe 300. That's all you need for marine wildlife. And like Eric was saying, you know, I've seen photographers spend $15,000 on their camera setups and get absolutely awful pictures because they don't know what they're doing. And honestly, the most important thing, it's not about the camera. It's not I mean, it is about the settings to get the nicest pictures, but what it really comes down to is spending time out there and knowing the animal's behavior. Like
exactly.
I have spent so much time trying to perfect the common dolphin shot, and I never will. But just learning, just sitting there and watching their behaviors, noticing little patterns, little differences, knowing if you're watching long beaks or short beaks, just rolling up on them and seeing what kind of mood they're in can totally change what kind of photos or, you know, videos you can make. That's really what it comes to.
Yeah. Like out here, like people literally think you're, you know, you have like you're psychic and stuff like that by the things we do. But it's just because we know the animals. Like Kate Cummings, oh my God, she's amazing at like predicting lunges. Like, you know, she'll tell people, look right here, and you know, that caught on, you know, like all of us out here, obviously, you know, we got it all dialed in. But I tell people, like, you know, see where the sea lions pop up, look over there, or like look for the sea lions, watch for that moment where they all kind of you know, abruptly leave an area or wait for that little tiny flash of silver. You know, it's the anchovies getting out of the way, or like even the breaching. You know, it's like I always tell people, if you see like a dive that looks like the whale was in a hurry to dive, that's all you want to keep your camera up. You know, that's usually could be because it's loading up for a breach or something like that.
Yeah, or even like if you see a breach once, it's not like, oh, I missed it, I got to put my camera down. It's like, you better hold that camera up there, buddy, because that thing might be coming out of the water again.
Yeah, so, for sure.
I've always given people little tips like that, like, you know, look for that, just listen to me, look for that, you know, look at the birds, look at that dark purple patch of water, you know, that's food right there. And then they're like, oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like I said, it's pretty simple. Like most of us use shutter speed 1/3200, but more importantly than that, you know, you're not going to be a good photographer if you use those settings. What's going to take you to the next level is spending time on the ocean and learning about your subjects. That's the number one piece of advice that I can give any aspiring photographer. It's just
and learn about your camera too. You know, like
totally. I mean, you're totally right.
Not every setup behaves quite the same, and you're on a moving platform taking pictures of moving targets.
Yeah, definitely. And like I think it is probably better to start on a lower grade camera and really spend time more on focusing on the animal versus the camera. But you're gonna perfect your skills along the way, and then eventually when you feel like you're a good enough photographer, and you spend enough time out there, you can upgrade and get the next camera that you want to buy. And it might take years. Like I've had my camera for 2 years now, and it's a lot of people are like Slater always says, he's like, why do you use that camera? Like, yeah, he's not just for but Slater always gives me crap because it's like not the best camera in the world, but like I'll make some good photos out of it for sure.
And it's what do you want out of it, right? Because like it can be as expensive as you want it to be, but like, are you trying to make money off of it? Is it just a fun hobby? Is it for scientific research? Like,
very good point.
You have to kind of center your focus on that too. Like, how much financially are you willing to invest in this if it's just a hobby? Versus, are you going to make money off of it? Versus, is it for research?
And another thing is, there are people who get discouraged really quick, and there's people who get into this without really fully understanding this is wildlife. They see all our breach photos. They're like, all I wanted was a breach, and it didn't happen. I was like, we're out here every day. It doesn't even happen for us,
Dude, I could go weeks without seeing a breach.
Yeah, and people get discouraged about that, and then they're like, "Oh, this sucks." It's like, no, it's just because you need to understand it is nature.
Yeah.
Adam, all of us 6 days, you guys 5 days a week, and that's why, because we do this for a living. If you come out on one trip and you didn't see a breach,
well, and we don't post the bad
and you're
upset.
Pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We don't post it. Yeah, we post the things that like. We get
for every good photo I got, I probably got 2,000 garbage ones.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. I got pictures of the sky, the water. I do.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Out of focus photos. Yeah.
So it really is. It just takes time, and like Eric's like we've been saying, it takes a devotion. Like if you really want to get shots, it takes some time. Like I think over the summer there's a period where I went like 27 days without missing the ocean. Like on my days off, I still went out and like. And granted, the one day I didn't go was like the most amazing day ever. But that's how it happens, you just never know.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest with you, like I said, I'm not a photographer, but if I was, I honestly think, in my opinion, it takes away from everything. I mean, I'm out there because I love the whales, and if I'm going to be sitting there pissed off the whole time because I didn't get a shot of a breach, then it's going to ruin it. You're in the wrong field,
Yeah, you totally are.
Yeah.
Well, and like there's some companies that you work for that also like will ask that be your lowest priority, right? Like
totally. That in Washington, that's the way it was. Obviously, like obviously passengers should always be first.
Yeah.
That's or just passenger experience or just even your own experience should be first. But that's why I love photography. It's just being able to capture a moment, and no matter how old I am, if I'm an 80-year-old man that is a vegetable and I can't get to the ocean or whatever, I can go back and look at the incredible things I've seen. And
there's
that's what drives me. So
there's some companies that straight out don't let their crew have cameras too.
Totally.
Yeah, but that's
like
a low priority.
I usually don't even bring mine to work because it's such a low priority for staff to focus on.
Yeah, so photos are my low priority. It's just that don't be discouraged because all of us get photos, but don't forget it's our job to be out there. So, as I say, awesome things happen in front of me. I'm not looking for them.
Yeah, but it's a good question. I mean, if you're going to shoot shutter priority, keep it high. It's a moving target. You're standing on a moving platform, and then adjust with the lighting as necessary.
Yeah, it's always different out there. I mean, even shutter priority. If I know I got something slow moving, consistently, or if I'm just trying to get ID shots, but I still want it sharp, I'll just lower the shutter speed so I can, get a better ISO so it's less grainy and stuff like that. So
yeah, sometimes if it's dark too, you have to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely, besides knowing the animal's behavior, it's really good to know the relationship between ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. The three of those working together, if you can figure out how they affect each other and you can do it on the fly and just change settings on the fly for certain situations, that helps as well. But like I said, for the majority of the time, if it's a sunny day or slightly overcast day, I'm shooting at 1/3200 and just lowest ISO and let the camera do the rest. It's all about that finger focus. That's what matters. Getting the focus down.
The aim. Yeah, the aim and the focus.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, oh, it's gonna be a short podcast.
Short one. Yep. Didn't turn out that way.
We haven't even done whale news or talked about filmography stuff. Do we want to save that for later?
We'll save it. Yeah. I know Slater likes films, so we can save that. When he comes back.
The whale news is kind of still ongoing stuff anyway. So
yeah, that stuff keeps on coming.
It's it's okay to push it off to the next episode.
Wow, that's kind of funny. We went into this thinking it was going to be short. We were just talking about these things, but we didn't talk about any of those things.
I was like, 35 minutes will be good. Here we are.
This is actually how this started. Caitlin and Slater sitting on the couch going, we should record our conversations. And this is how it all started.
True.
I mean, I that's a valid point. Like, we started on some of the topics, but I think we really talked about a lot of interesting and thought-provoking things in this episode. I really enjoyed this.
The one thing I love about us, all four of us, is that we're actually people in the field, We're in the field, and that really helps. You're seeing the real thing. I mean, man, I almost think like we should start like a podcast for like a after hours one about the real stuff.
Are you gonna moderate the after hours where like I can drink a beer?
Yeah. Like when I got into whale watching, once after a few years, after a few years of it, you ever hear that term? You should never meet your heroes. Nah, I know what that means right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin, especially you younger people out of college. Some of the people you guys worship. Oh my God.
Yeah. Except for us, we're great. We're great.
Yeah. I mean, no one's perfect, but some of the things we see in the field, let's just say you should probably Google the name of some of the people you think are your heroes in whale watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Google my name.
Yeah.
You'll find a dude. You'll find a dude also named Adam Ernster that lives in LA, and he does like physical training. That's not me. He does like yoga. That's not me.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to consider that. I don't know if we could get down the spiral quickly with those topics. I don't know if that's such a good idea.
Well, there are like there's a few Facebook pages, like those naturalist only pages. Even those won't even dare touch some of the things that we know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of unspoken knowledge.
Yeah.
I guess I would say.
Yeah. Let's just say these you young people getting into the field, be careful who you worship or look as a hero or go do an internship for,
But also if you have questions about specific places that we talk about often, ask us.
Just straight up ask.
I'm pretty candid, but also pretty professional. So, let me know. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Especially for women wanting to get into the field too, because that's a different.
That's your girl. That's your go-to girl.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying there's maybe some things you want to ask me questions about that I could give you a better answer than maybe a man in the field could give you.
And if you want to ask an old Asian marine biologist things, I'm your guy. Yeah.
Or a young Asian marine biologist.
We got some diversity in this group now. Yeah.
Oh man.
I always get those comments on Instagram. Like I said, there's people who think it's like, oh, he's a photographer, this awesome life, and I was like, I want to be. He was like, you want to be an old boring Asian guy? And you're like, no, the whale part.
You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Like I do other things, that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to tell everyone, in addition to thank you, because thank you is very important. Just have a safe and healthy holiday season.
Definitely.
it's definitely a tough year this year, and I know people are having to make sacrifices and not have their normal holidays, but it's worth it. So just be careful out there, and we're hoping that we're all going to get through this in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, thank you so much. We're almost on 2 years of this podcast, and so I'm just super grateful that we're still going and that we added Adam to the team and that we still have listeners, and we have Patreon followers that support our work financially, which I'm always super, super grateful for. So, and we're hoping that 2021 is going to bring some exciting new things to Whalenerds too. So, we're navigating that as we go. We all work, and I move around a lot.
Yeah, you do.
But
at least you're moving to Wales. Yeah.
Yeah, moving. It's all in the realm, but we're slowly working away on some new goals, and we're excited for those to come down the line. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
I second those thoughts.
Yeah, those are some nice.
No, seriously,
thoughts.
like thank you guys. It really does. It means a lot to us. We get to not only work in the field that we love to, we get to come home and talk about it as well, and just try to spread as much love for these animals and as much knowledge as we can. And I'm obviously new, but I've idolized you guys since I started. And it's pretty cool that I get to be here with you guys. So I really appreciate not only you guys but everybody listening. And yeah, hopefully 2021 is going to be a good year for not only humanity but the whales as well. So we all got our fingers crossed. We're all going to keep fighting and stay strong together. So
yeah,
cool. Hopefully all these whales will still be here in 2021.
I think at least some of them will, right?
I hope
Yeah,
so.
It's always a goal.
Should be. My favorite gray whales are trickling in. I'm happy.
Yay!
I feel like I'm the only person that loves gray whales sometimes.
I like gray whales.
I really need to see them in Baja. I
They're
love gray
so
whales now, but
crusty, and I love them.
You're welcome. You're welcome to
little rocks.
try to tag along with me. I think we got spots
try
left.
to tag along with me.
I'm gonna try to.
I'm pretty sure it's hopefully things don't change and we're still able to everything happens this year.
Yeah. Well, fingers
For
crossed.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll end it here. So thanks so much, everyone, and we will talk to you in the new year.
Whoa!
Luna says bye.
That,
Luna says bye too.
Oh, okay.
Chill out.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.